I know this is looking a fair bit into the future, but with Haas signing Oliver Bearman on a multi-year contract, does this mean that Ferrari are already prepping a replacement for Lewis Hamilton? Just so that they're ready for when that reaches its natural conclusion years from now. Or spectacularly implodes sooner than expected. But also, we can't disregard that Leclerc might decide his future is elsewhere. Either way, Ferrari will need to replace at least one of their drivers in the coming year with somebody. And from what they're cooking up with Haas, it looks like that person might just be Oliver Bearman. So Haas have finally managed to secure the signature of this promising young talent currently driving in F2 and has his work cut out currently as a reserve driver for both Ferrari and Haas. Also, I have to add, is currently running a very respectable 14th place in the F1 Drivers' Championship, after completing just one race and standing in for the unwell Carlos Sainz. So he's shown that he can now at least handle himself in a Formula 1 car. Now we'll have to see how that goes over the course of the season with all the pressures that goes with it, but otherwise, I think he's quite deserved it. And yes, there are other drivers out there which are higher in the F2 standings, and there could be the argument made that they are perhaps maybe more deserving. But let's not forget, winning the F2 title is no guarantee of a successful F1 career. In fact, winning it may be even seen as a curse because you're taking yourself out of that talent pool. Money and influence is involved, as it always has been, but I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Drivers now, more often than not, come from wealthy backgrounds, and it just is what it is. But by Bearman working very closely with Ferrari and cutting his teeth in that sort of environment, a move to the newly overhauled, positive-looking Haas team under Komatsu could be just the right thing for him. Komatsu will be able to provide that sort of guidance for him and hopefully be able to take him up to that next step of his career. It's a win-win situation for all involved. Haas get an exciting young prospect on their books and all the excitement and marketing benefits that goes with it. And Ferrari get to observe Bearman in racing conditions, he gets some miles under his belt and see if he is a future candidate for a Ferrari drive. But I think there certainly now appears to be a trend where these big F1 teams, these kind of institutions, if you will, would rather grow their own talent and bring up these young talent from within and have them race another series under their name than sign in talent from elsewhere. So basically, so you bring up talent in your environment and teach them your way of doing things. With the exception, of course, to established drivers making that big money move if the opportunity does present itself. But I think really every team aspires to be the one that brings in a talent, new talent from within. And it's a method which seems to have worked very positively so far for the teams which are pretty much institutions and need to give young drivers a shot and just keep the conveyor belt of young drivers rolling in. Either they debut them with their own team straight away, like we saw with Lando Norris at McLaren, or they loan them out with a smaller team to kind of develop and cut their teeth. And also with F1's new young fan base, it's beneficial for teams to have a young and exciting driver which these fans can follow and relate to, and also, of course, buy tons of their merchandise and follow on social media. That cool young driver who's going to bring loads of new fans on board. Now, although Bearman has been announced as a Haas driver on a multi-year deal, although put more accurately, he is on a long-term loan deal to Haas where Ferrari will observe and also have the right to call him back at a moment's notice if they need. And just with that, Bearman is a fantastic insurance policy for Ferrari because he's going to be racing in a team which is rejuvenated. Komatsu's kind of doing his thing and bringing some new energy to the team, so he's going to have some really right and good people around him. Now, it's unclear who will be partnering Bearman at Haas, but they do need to now be very careful and tactical as to who they choose. Esteban Ocon has been seen as a potential candidate for the Haas seat. Now, although he can be a very capable driver, I sense there's a possibility he could bring in some extra baggage and weight to the team that is just simply not needed right now. And then you have all these other sorts of zombie drivers on the market hanging around looking for a job, like the likes of Bottas or Daniel Ricciardo, who don't really have that much to offer anymore, but still seem to be kind of mildly in demand. So who do they choose? Well, I think the sensible option to go alongside Bearman would be Kevin Magnussen. K-Mag knows his way around the place, he can still pull in points for Haas, he doesn't seem to make a fuss, and he has enough experience as well just to show Bearman where the on and off switch is in the factory. Granted, he's not exactly the best candidate in outright skill, but he's also not the worst either. So Bearman having the right teammate next to him in the right environment, and credit to Komatsu, he has seriously turned that place around from what it appeared to be under Günther Steiner. And hopefully he'll now reap the benefits of this new encouraging and harmonious environment. So now when we get onto the notion of Bearman being a possible replacement for Lewis Hamilton somewhere down the line. Now on the face of it, I'm aware that this can be quite easily dismissed considering where Hamilton is now and where Bearman is now. Hamilton is way up here and Bearman is way down there. Sorry, I was just trying to get my hands in the shot. Fast forward 2 or 3 years and Bearman could very well impress in the Haas. He could punch above his weight and score some regular points. And if he does do this on a regular basis, we could find ourselves in a position where he becomes one of those drivers that is tipped for much bigger things. And by then, Lewis Hamilton could be coming to the conclusion of his time at Ferrari and also his career. He'll probably be about 42 or 43 years old, which means that Ferrari do need to start looking at replacements. Therefore, Bearman, who has proved himself in a Haas, scoring regular points and everything, could be revealed as the most sensible and likely candidate. Ferrari get to promote one of their homegrown talent, and also they would get a massive return on their investment too. However, though, we have to consider as well there might be another scenario. Now, surely, and hopefully I'm not the only one who thinks this, but after the announcement when it was made that Hamilton was moving to Ferrari, I did kind of wonder about the compatibility of Hamilton and Ferrari and how suitable he would actually be to the way of doing things at Maranello. And it's not how compatible Ferrari is to Hamilton. Hamilton must comply with the Ferrari Maranello red way of doing things. This is a totally different operation and institution for what he's used to before. This is Ferrari, the car is the star, and I do sort of wonder how that will go down with him. Now, as an F1 fan, it's a fantastic move. It's great for the sport, it spices things up, and it gives that extra bit of unpredictability, and it's a massive what if for the 2025 season. Now, I hope we do have some good years of Hamilton at Ferrari, but I think, like many of you, we can't hide from the possibility that it may not work out as planned. As with any driver signing for a new team, Ferrari can be very volatile, and as can Lewis Hamilton. There is a high level of risk for Ferrari hiring such an experienced and decorated driver to go alongside Leclerc. Leclerc may not also be happy with this, so his future may be up for question. So therefore, Ferrari needs some sort of insurance policy here. An insurance policy in the shape of a proven, capable, point-scoring driver, and what Ferrari have done with Haas is just beginning that process. Now, Ferrari, I'm sure, learned a tough lesson when they originally had to call in Bearman to replace the unwell Carlos Sainz at the Saudi Grand Prix. They were really caught with their trousers down because I sense that they realised they couldn't call upon an experienced driver to replace an existing one in the same way that perhaps Red Bull can. If they do have to call in a replacement, that driver will also most likely be making his debut. So when you compare this perhaps to what Red Bull have in their arsenal, massive gap was exposed. And if Ferrari were in a seriously tight championship battle with Red Bull where every single tiny point mattered, it's this sort of weakness and this sort of gap that could cost them dearly and perhaps ultimately the championship. So overall, Ferrari have strengthened their lineup, they've insured themselves, and they are essentially future-proofing themselves with Bearman. And so all in all, it's a great result for everybody. Bearman gets his drive, Haas gets an exciting young driver, and Ferrari's investment gets some experience. Now, whether he will eventually be called upon by Ferrari remains to be seen, but ultimately that has to be what everyone in the Ferrari Bearman camp is working towards now. So do let me know what you think in the comments about this new development. Is he the right guy for Haas, or will he eventually become a Ferrari driver? Let me know your thoughts. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'm Paul, and I'll see you later. Cheers.